You can do many things in Spain as a politician. You can pass many retarded policies with little to no opposition. But a ban on memes? There's no way you're getting away with that. By the will of Kek, such initiatives must be quashed, for God save our gracious memes. Let's explore. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, so this is a developing story. Probably by the time I publish this video, there will be an update or two on this story. But nevertheless, the principle and the basic arguments remain largely unchanged. So, coming from The Independent, Spain moves to ban insulting memes about politicians from the internet. And goes like this, quote, Spain's ruling party has presented a reform proposal aimed at banning internet memes which appear to mock politicians. Lawmakers from the Popular Party, PP, announced the measures to halt the spreading of images that infringe the honor of a person and presented a motion to the National Congress. The party claimed the reform will only involve memes which are, quote, insulting, involve death threats, or accuse a person of committing a crime, close quote. Politicians want the measures to be written into Spain's citizens' security law, introduced in July 2015, and including restrictions on public protests and social media activism. The ministers noted that a law from 1982 involving the spreading of insulting images was outdated and did not take into account the appearance of the internet. Many of the memes in question have made fun of the policies of Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy. Free speech campaigners have criticized the proposal as an attack on civil liberties and believe the measures could lead to more restrictions on freedom of expression. Quote, we are worried about this reform because internet does not require special laws. The same rights and duties should exist online as offline, Spain's platform for the defense of freedom of information said in a statement. If the intent is to pursue those who publish images without consent, then an act as widespread as sharing political criticism in the form of memes becomes a risky activity. Thousands of social network users reacted to the announcement by sharing dozens of memes involving Mr. Rajoy and the hashtag Sin Memes No Hay Democracia, meaning no democracy without memes. In September, a socialist regional MP was caught creating a derogatory meme of his party's leader on his laptop in the middle of a parliamentary session. Juan José Moreno Navarro was photographed in the Madrid assembly turning a picture of leader Cristina Cifuentes into the popular movie character Dirty Harry in order to mock her proposed policies. Creating memes during the parliamentary session. I mean, come on, that's hilarious in and of itself. But on a more serious note, this policy proposal should be filed under the let them eat cake category. That is cake and not cake, just to make sure I clear things up. It takes a certain level of insulation from reality to concern oneself as a lawmaker in Spain with restricting memes, whilst at the same time the unemployment rate in the country sits at around 21 to 23%, depending on which source you trust, with the youth unemployment going as high as 45% or 43.9%, again, depending on which source you trust. Translation, the country is bankrupt, mate. It's really that simple. And it is bankrupt in part because socialism and huge government spending. Now, the New York Times, a former newspaper, writes about the mystery of Spain's perpetual jobs problem. But there really is no mystery. Just take a look at the insanity of Spain's labor regulation and you have your answer. Now, I have a friend who has a company in Spain. Well, actually, I have a friend who lives in Spain who has a company in Cyprus that has a working office in Spain. He used to have a company in Spain as well, but when he noticed that he can go bankrupt if he wants to fire 3 people at once, he quietly moved the company away from the socialist hellhole and changed the labor contracts into international contracts governed by the EU and Cyprus law. Now, that's still bad in and of itself, but nowhere near as bad as the Spanish law. There really is no mystery. Socialist policies are keeping the country and its people in poverty and unemployed. Yet for some reason, the Popular Party, elected mainly because they were mildly less insane than the Partido Socialista Obrero Español, which brought an era of genderist extremism upon the country, and I'll leave you some reading material in the low bar if you're curious about that. So the Popular Party, elected mainly because they weren't that insane as the other guys, is busy policing memes and trying to prosecute people for using encryption online and to crack down on online activism. Because let's be clear, this is not the first nor the last time, the way things are going, when this government tries to encroach upon the freedom of expression of the Spaniards. As for the argument itself, namely that it's not so bad as this reform would only involve memes which are insulting or involve death threats or accuse a person of committing a crime, well, that's pretty meaningless, isn't it? One man's insult is another man's source of fun. If I make a meme comparing Mariano Rajoy with a donkey, is that insulting or witty? Or maybe even an expression of reality? Who knows? It really is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? As for death threats and accusing a person of committing a crime, again, that's a lot more relative than many would dare to think at a first glance. If I make a meme implying that Mariano Rajoy is corrupt, would that fall under this law? I mean, he is a politician. It kinda is a fair assumption that he is corrupt. And I assume corruption is still a crime in Spain, isn't it? Also, on the topic of death threats, if I suggest that Mariano Rajoy should kill himself, is that a death threat? If I suggest that it would be glorious to see Mr. Rajoy falling off a cliff, is that a death threat? Who knows? He probably thinks it is, but millions of people would promptly disagree. Basically, this kind of argument can be made about any such claim, which is why we oppose any attempts to restrict speech. Just because a certain kind of speech offends you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's hateful, and it most certainly does not mean it should be banned. Now, of course, Spaniards reacted as they should have by creating dozens upon dozens of memes and spreading them everywhere. But I do need to point out something that none of the mainstream outlets have. Spain is the head of a cultural empire of its own, just like the United States is. There is a huge Spanish-speaking world out there, and many countries have Spanish as their de facto language. All it takes to get around this law is to post through a VPN from Mexico or from Colombia. Good luck prosecuting memes posting from Colombia, Senor Rajoy. This move shows not only the sheer incompetence of the government to tackle, real issues rather than petty nonsense, but it also shows how little politicians tend to know about the internet. Virtually all laws pertaining to the internet are one click away from being broken perfectly lawfully. I mean, what are you going to do? Ban VPNs? Good luck with that. Bloody plebs. Anyway, if this idiocy passes, I'll be glad to borrow my persona to any Spaniard who wants to publish a meme. I'll publish them on my Twitter account and then you can retweet them. Good luck to the government making the case that retweeting should also be illegal. This is so dumb and plebeian on so many levels that I really cannot help it. Laughter is really all I have for such policies. And with all of that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on Freedom Alternative.